Okay, we're doing it.
We are. Hi, Jordan.
Hi.
So I hope everyone's heard your music and I hope everyone's heard of you. But if they haven't and you have to describe who you are to somebody, how would you describe yourself?
Sonically, should I start there?
Yeah, go ahead. How would you, if someone said, hey, who are you? Would you start sonically? Is that where you would start?
Typically, yeah. Yeah. And I try to be as like umbrella term as possible because I don't know exactly like where people's references lie. So I just say I'm a dreamy, ethereal electronic artist.
How did you get into electronic music specifically?
I started my music career playing guitar in punk bands, shoegaze type stuff. And then I think I took a break for a while, and during that break period I was just kind of dabbling in Ableton, and I was also my taste was shifting a lot. So this was probably back in like 2015 era, and I was listening to like a lot of Kraftwerk. So
thank God.
That might have been kind of my roots there. Of course, Aphex Twin is like top tier for me. So kind of started there. And then I was still recording guitar, but slowly the guitar was less and less. And then I got more involved in like the dance community in New York too. So just over time, it evolved into strictly an electronic project. And now I'm bringing back the guitar.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I see in the live performances that you bring back the guitar. And is there a lot of the stuff from your previous life that carries on into your electronic music?
Definitely. I think that's unavoidable. As much as I try to like always enter a new sonic frontier with what I'm doing, it's like I can't escape my past self. So yeah, there's always elements of shoegaze that I'm incorporating either consciously or not. Always elements of punk music here and there. Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place, honestly. I think I'm like a big focus for me is trying to make something that people haven't heard before for the first time.
And does that cause issues? Because I've realized I've experienced this, and I'm not sure if this is just a thing with electronic music in general or certain genres of electronic music, but people love putting them in categories.
Of course.
And
yeah.
if you step out of the BPM of the category or the instruments that are used in the category, people want to spear you. And the thing that I realized when listening to your music is that it gives me this beautiful feeling of kind of like a memory. Right. So it has this like nostalgic vibe, but it doesn't sound old. It doesn't sound like retro music.
Yeah.
And I can't quite place where it belongs, which to me is like fucking beautiful. And that's why I like it. But I'm sure to other people, they short circuit. And has that been like an issue in electronic music?
It's more of an issue when it comes to the business side of things, like streaming specifically. Although I think it's getting better, but I think at the beginning, at least, it was hard to fit me in a category. So therefore, it's like, well, you can't really put me in on a playlist strictly for rave music, or you can't put me on a playlist for indie rock. Like, I have one foot in all these different places, but it's like no one would accept me at the beginning, I would say, in either of those. But now I think there's just more music out there that's slightly similar to mine, so I'm finding a new place for it.
was watching this sort of podcast delve into the playlistification of music earlier today. And it was talking about how there's actually arisen this genre of music that is created for algorithms, right? So chorus up front, really catchy thing that can be distilled down to 15 seconds so it can be hit in the TikTok algorithm.
Yeah.
And the question was, do you do that knowing that it works to like boost yourself, or do you not do that knowing that the AI or the machines are going to disregard your music without some sort of outside help, without like a person pointing to your music, right?
Yeah.
Has that affected you at all? Like, do you ever think about stuff like that when you're making music?
I definitely try to not think about that stuff when I'm making music. But I think I've noticed recently, sometimes I'll write a song and it's under 3 minutes, 33 seconds or whatever, like a pop song is supposed to be rigidly structured within. And it'll be under that time limit, but I'm like, the song is kind of done. It is what it is. It makes a statement. And now with streaming, it's like, well, they almost encourage you to write shorter songs. So at least in that respect, I'm like, well, I can just put this out and I don't have to worry about like lengthening the song for the sake of it being more pop structured or whatever. So in that sense, it gives me more freedom. But otherwise, I really try to tune out all of that.
That's good. It's hard, but I think there's the group of people who are making music as a living, like strictly to make money, and that's totally respectable. It's it can be a craft or it can be an art. Yeah. Right. And the people who are doing it as a craft have that down to a science and they churn it out, and that's fine. That's their job. Yeah. But you're saying that you most definitely are still looking at it as an art.
Of course. Yeah.
That sounds like
always.
Retrofuturism?
Yeah, I think that is another term I've just decided to use to be more all-encompassing of what I'm doing. I know I needed to find a word for what I do that so people could categorize it if they really wanted to.
Here's your label, bitches.
So I'm like, here you go. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of the essence of what I'm doing. I'm taking elements of the past, elements of what I love from the 90s and early 2000s, and then like trying to bring it into the future, trying to do something new.
So you already mentioned Kraftwerk, Aphex Twin. Mm-hmm. What kind of influences do you think, if someone heard in your music, they wouldn't be wrong, right? Other than those two.
Progressive house from the 90s is now like, you can kind of hear it within a lot of what I'm doing. And it was interesting because when I wrote the first song for this project, Us Ephemeral, which like became the title track to the record and everything, I didn't really have anything in mind. It was just very stream of consciousness, and you know, I was just like listening to a lot of dance music, and that's just kind of what came out of me. And then I showed it to a friend. He's like, oh, this sounds like Opus 3. Sounds kind of like Orbital. Oh. And I was like, I've never heard of Opus 3 before, but I'll check it out. And then I listened to it and I was like, this is my new favorite project. And so it's funny, like the things that influence me now were like almost a side effect of people telling me that my music sounded like it at the beginning.
It's kind of about the community, right? So you've built or kind of fostered a community around you with like the label and the live streams and streams. How did that come about? Was it out of necessity because like something wasn't there before, or was it like in conjunction with something that was already happening?
There was an element of necessity, I would say. I think with everything I do as well, creatively, everything I'm trying to create, I just look for where's the void. I always try to ask myself that question. And so whether that's with my music, like sounds that I haven't heard before, that's where I tend to want to go. And now with the label, I moved to New York, the city, a decade ago this month. So it's been like 10 years officially.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. And yeah, when I first moved here, I was just so inspired by the New York scene. I was inspired by Capture Tracks, that label, just the music coming out of that. I was inspired by all the shows at 285 Kent and Glasslands and all of that. It was just like vibrant and exciting and just held so much potential for the future. And within maybe a year or two, it just felt like a lot of that dissipated. And a lot of that had to do with all these places shutting down and not having really a space for it anymore. And so, I don't know, that tying into just a multitude of other things happening in my life and me kind of deciding to take a break from music for a while. I just felt like there wasn't a lot of vibrance in New York anymore in terms of just a music scene. And then I found it again when I started going to places like Nowadays and going clubbing and like finding that dance community. That's what got me excited about making music again and just having a community again. But now we're like officially in, we can say, I guess, post-pandemic times. And with that has come just this vibrance again that I saw initially 10 years ago, but specifically now with like more rock, guitar leaning sounds and not just within the dance world. And so I feel like with this label, we're just trying to really, have a place for that, hold space for that and just facilitate it. It's not like we're, the leaders of it all. It's just we're just part of this larger thing happening and we just want to support it.
It's so weird because the time you moved here, it's an interesting time because there have been many waves of New York, the best time and then dying. And then, no, you missed it. And then something happens and then it's over. And then, no, you missed that. Right. So many times over and over. And it does really feel to me like we're ramping up. Right. Because for a while I was feeling like, oh shit, I missed it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this like same time period that you're talking about, like all this exciting stuff is happening. Everyone in the country is talking about how cool this is, even though this is after the early 2000s wave, right? This is the third, fourth, fifth wave of shit out of New York in the rock alternative sort of world, because the hip hop world never really died. So then now there was really like a comatose vibe pre-pandemic.
It did feel that way.
It really felt like there was stuff that was kind of Xerox, copy and paste, same shit over and over and over. Nothing's exciting.
I mean, hey, and I worked live sound that entire time. So I got to see that every night. It was very rare for especially a band to do anything to really stir up emotions within me. It just felt like everything was really regurgitative, self-indulgent, wasn't communicating much. Yeah. And so the last thing I wanted to do was like turn to rock music again, indie music again. I just was like, nah, it's all dance for me. That's it.
Something that I've talked to with a lot of people on the whole artist front is kind of this, not new, but post 2010 reality that we have to not only be musicians, but now we also have to be marketing people, right? So we gotta get out there and put stuff on social media. Is that part of your job something that comes natural to you, or is it something that you fight?
Definitely does not come naturally to me. Anything forward facing in general does not come naturally to me. I grew up very shy. It always took me a lot to just speak up and talk to people. And I was just a very like reserved, quiet kid. And I think that's what always sort of, that was the allure of being a musician to a certain extent, was like fighting those demons and just like allowing myself to be in front of people and just like confront that. And so even if it's social media, even if it's like starting a stream, all of that is just sort of like tackling my my shyness maybe.
When you're on stage or when you're producing the music, do you have to put on a persona? Is it really you, or are you letting yourself out there to be bare? Because that's a lot harder than having a persona that you put on that you can separate, you know?
I don't know. I do feel like it's me. I think also with what I do, I try to be pretty transparent with who I am. I'm not really into that like pretentious, aloof mindset. Like I really want to connect with people, and I really want people to like, I want it to be a space where like I can be vulnerable and be myself. And so if anything, I'm like more myself sometimes in those situations. I have my walls not up so much. Oh.
Zoe. Hey, no.
What's
no.
what?
Oh shit! It's a dead mouse. They found a dead mouse.
Okay. No, don't touch it. Wait.
So you said when you were younger, you were a shy kid.
Yeah.
So when you get on stage, you don't seem shy. You seem very in control, and you seem like it's natural for you. So is that a persona, or is that who you actually are? The person on stage, are you bringing yourself and being like bare and vulnerable, or are you?
Yeah. I would say that it's definitely more me than a persona. Should we start that again? Let's just keep it in.
Yeah, it's
this
fine.
is really a day in the life.
Yeah, and dogs.
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, I think it's just being forward facing in that context allows me to be more myself to a certain extent. I think on a day-to-day basis, when I'm going throughout life, I tend to have a wall up. I think most people do. And I think having a project like this just like allows me to embrace a more vulnerable side of myself and just have a space to connect with people more. So it's like some people can treat their projects as like this grandiose illusion. But for me, I think it's just actually showcasing more of like who I truly am in a way. And also, I was talking to my mom about this actually at my show, because she came out to my show. This was super embarrassing. She went down to Virginia and was just like seeing my cousins and my aunt and a bunch of family. And she decided that she wanted to show some of my music videos to them. I have one music video that's like maybe a little revealing. And she decided to sit them all around and have them watch the video with her. She didn't think anything of it. She thought it was cool. She's very supportive. But it was really hard for me to hear that, because I think like this project also is an outlet for me to embrace more of a feminine side of myself that I normally have to shut out. I think, you know, we all know we live kind of more in a, you and I can relate to this. Like we work in a very male dominated field.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you know, we're surrounded by that energy a lot. And I think that like I have to act more masculine most of the day to get by. And so having a music project like this just allows me to be fully embracing my feminine side, which makes it hard for family to see some of that stuff sometimes, even though it's not even that bad. But like,
I was going to say, yeah. I watched all the videos like in succession because there's something I'm going to ask you about. And there's a reason that I was like, wait, I got to watch that video again, right?
Yeah.
So I watched your most recent video, and I think that's the one you're talking about, right? The video for
Ricochet?
For Ricochet. Is
There's
that the
a video, well, my music video before that, for my song Right Now.
I mean, but none of those they're not like pornographic, like
No,
it's like the equivalent of a bathing suit
not at
sort
all.
of situation.
But for me, it is like pretty extreme for me, just because of, like I said, how I have to act on a daily basis. It's very different than like how people are used to seeing me.
Yeah, I struggle with that intensely. And for a very long time, what I would wear on stage was like very equivalent to like what Stevie Nicks would wear on stage. So I had like these very long, flowy things because I wanted to feel beautiful, but I also did not want to be revealed. And most, I think a lot of that comes from having one particularly very religious parent, you know, who is definitely not a fan of women showing their bodies, you know. And even though I'm a grown-ass adult now, it sticks with you, you know. And the last show I wore something somewhat revealing, not even that revealing, but like a very low cut in the front, right? And afterwards I put on a coat because I didn't want to walk around like that in just the crowd, right? And one of the people asked to take a photo with me asked me if I would take off my coat when I took the photo. And and it was a very weird thing for me to deal with, like, because on one hand I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a cool outfit, I should take the coat off. And then on the other hand I'm like, do you only want to take a photo with me if I take my coat off? You know what I mean? So it's a weird thing. The reason I never did it before was because I did not want that to be the reason people liked me.
Exactly.
Right? But then also, why should I have to cover myself because you're not adult enough, or not this particular person, but society is not controlled enough or adult enough to be able to separate the fact that women have breasts from women are intelligent. Like, you can do both. I could be naked and be totally capable of doing my job.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
exactly.
It's very odd.
It is very odd. It's something I've definitely struggled with my whole life. I think it's just like the struggle of women in modern day society is maybe society forever. It's just like, you know, that, I mean, for me, it's not like I'm sexualizing myself. It's like when I do stuff like that, I just want to feel more free, feel more vulnerable, feel more myself. And so, but then you also have to recognize that there are people out there that will sexualize it no matter what. And especially when I was younger, I think that was part of my shyness. I just did not want that type of attention. Ever.
Oh, 1,000%.
I wanted to be respected for my mind and for just like, you know, my creativity and all those things. And so I really, and especially when I got into audio engineering, just like wore black t-shirt, black pants, years, just kept it real simple. And yeah, I don't know. It is interesting to see that sort of like that transition in my life with this project. Just, I think it's allowed me, even outside of this project, just me as myself, to be more embracing of my feminine side and just say fuck you to anyone that like wants to take it in a different direction.
Yeah, it's a constant struggle, you know, because I think also if you're like a young millennial or have touched the millennial generation, you remember the Hillary Clinton pantsuit situation. Like, that is a woman who, for better or for worse, people listen to, right? And she's got her shit together and she fucking wears a pantsuit. You know what I mean? So there's this idea of a woman people listen to looks like this.
Yes.
And a woman who could be really smart, but, you know, people don't take seriously.
Yeah.
Dresses like like any normal woman would dress, you know what I mean? Or, you know, will dress like Dolly Parton, who's an extremely intelligent person. But every interview of Dolly Parton is asking, like, why do you dress this way? Why? You know, it's so weird.
Especially as like a millennial woman, I think like things have changed slowly for the better. But when I was younger and I looked at just women in media, especially like women in music, there was never a situation where they wouldn't be asked about those types of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Ever.
Like, even when it had absolutely nothing to do. I remember Alanis Morissette getting these questions about why and here's like the real distillation of this. If you're someone like Alanis Morissette or Patti Smith or somebody who did not dress traditionally feminine all the time, you're constantly asked why you don't.
Yeah.
Right? You're
Right.
constantly asked, or people are making fun of how butch or how ugly you are.
Right.
Or, you know, someone like Whoopi Goldberg, who's a beautiful person, who people constantly called ugly because she didn't dress like other feminine women. Right.
Right. Right.
And then on the other side, if you are sexual in any way, even if it's not overly sexual, you're a whore.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
and you can't possibly be intelligent.
It's
There's like no winning.
There's no winning.
Yeah, because
No
the
winning.
people who think that way, you know, my mom used to say it's about racists. The people who think that way, there's nothing you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right? You're never going to be smart enough or you're never going to be talented enough to show a racist that you're just as talented as anyone. They're just always going to...
It's a losing battle.
Yeah, there's
with
no
people
point.
like that.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no point.
Yeah.
And that brings me to something that you tweeted a couple days ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so...
I didn't realize you followed me on Twitter.
I do. Everyone should. So you tweeted about somebody accusing you of not producing your own music because, or putting a woman in a video that was produced by a man, and that you're not the real producer because...
Yeah.
That I can't even understand
mean,
how crazy it is. So you're gonna have to
it's just
explain
like
this.
one of those days. I was just like scrolling through the comments, which I shouldn't do, but here we are.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
And who knows? The problem with comments online, it could be an 11-year-old boy that just like has not gone through his formative years and like has no idea. And I'm taking it this seriously, but at the same time, yeah. So there was this comment under one of my videos that I just put out. And the comment was like, oh, I hate this song. I hate this video. Why are you just putting a girl in your video just to get clicks? And it's like, that's your first thought. Like, it didn't even cross your mind that the person in the video could have made this song. You just think this chick in there is just a prop. It's crazy. It's crazy that someone would even jump to that conclusion. That's why I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're an 11-year-old boy, but that's wishful thinking. Yeah, I mean, it happens. I got it with my album cover too. And the thing is, the space that I exist within online, I'm not within one specific community, but it is extremely male dominated with whether it's vaporwave or drum and bass, or, you know, it's extremely male dominated. So people just don't even, there's people out there that just don't even think that a woman would make that type of music. There are people out there. So their first thought is like, why are you using this photo for clickbait? And it's like, bro, it's me. It's me in the photo.
And the thing is, it's really important to not let that fuck with your head. Over years and years, like, when is the point that you feel like you don't have to prove it anymore?
Oh my God.
Do you know what I mean? Because I feel the
Yeah.
same way. Like, I don't need to be recreating the stuff live when I play. I could
Yeah.
just play back a recording. I did it the first time. Why the fuck do I need to do it again? A big percentage of it is because I want people to know that I'm capable of doing it.
Right.
Right?
That is a
So-
struggle. I think that it's a distraction, if anything, for just thinking solely about your music and doing what's best for the music, doing what's best for the performance. When you feel like you have to prove something, it takes you back into your ego. It takes you back into this way of thinking that's just not conducive for creativity or art. I don't want to have to be constantly thinking about like, I have to show the world that I am capable. It's like, I just want to give people an experience, give people a good song. Like, and when you have that in your head, it's extremely distracting, and it's a barrier to communication. And so I try my best to just, I think it's taken many years for me. I think when I was especially younger, and wasn't taken seriously nearly as much because I was just a young girl, I felt way more of that sense I needed to prove something. But now I'm like, if you don't believe I'm capable, that's your problem. Generally, you know, that comment that we were talking about, that's not every day. I think I'm always going to like focus on the bad comment. But for the most part, I think we've shifted for the better in the right direction. I think I'm so grateful for like the immense support I get from so many people. It's generally all positive. It's just, it does take like a comment like that here or there to really.
It's way less common than it was, though. I mean, I
It's
think we
way
got
less
to acknowledge
common.
that, right?
It's hard for me to know if part of that's like, okay, I'm in my 30s now. Like maybe I just now have that respect because I'm a little bit older, or society has shifted. It's hard to see what's what.
I think it's definitely a mixture. I
It
think
might be a
people
mixture.
are kind of thinking maybe twice before they say something really stupid.
Even if they are ignorant, they just don't want
Think
to
twice.
say it as much.
Yeah,
I
think
don't know.
twice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do also think that you give off an air of not giving a fuck quite as much. And then
I try
people
to.
take that as confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I pretty much don't give a fuck at this point. I'm just doing my thing.
The whole catalog of your music, if you were to like distill it down to a feeling or something that you're trying to say, you said you're trying to communicate with people through your music and touch them. What do you want them to hear? What's the feeling overall?
I can say for the next record I'm going into, it's leaning more into like spirituality and getting more in touch with like that aspect of myself and ourselves. Yeah, I think there's always like a transcendent element that I want to evoke. Just an escape from the human experience to a certain extent. There's a lot of bullshit in the world, and I think it's just there's an escapism quality with my music.
I feel a lot of that in a lot of the dance genres and the adjacent genres. There's this like, I wouldn't equate it exactly, but even with like some of the party hip hop stuff, it's kind of like, we know there's a lot of awful shit happening in the world, but this is a way to not think about it right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But you're mixing it with spirituality. So like, how does that work? Is it like transcending the negativity, like moving above it?
Yeah, I think so. I think at least for this next record, it's my own journey into finding what spirituality means for me, and just sort of navigating that. So a lot of my songs end up being sort of like a journal and a diary or something, just like a moment in time, sort of encapsulating what I'm pondering about, and then trying to just sonically have an escape from whatever struggles might be going on for me, and then hopefully that can like resonate with someone else.
Were you a religious kid? Were you brought up in religion?
I was religiously confused because my dad was Jewish, or my dad is Jewish, and my mom's like kind of Christian, but like, you know, we celebrate Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
But I went to church for a long time. I, on my own accord, decided to go to Sunday school and like get confirmed and do all that because I was always so shy and existentially confused and constantly just sitting by myself wondering about why I was here. And so I was like, even at a very young age, just like trying to figure out what I believed in. So I went to church. I was in Sunday school and church choir for years, while still, you know, celebrating Hanukkah and doing that stuff, and never really found answers. And so that was just a struggle for me, and caused immense anxiety.
I don't know if this happened to you, but it happened to me. Did anyone at the church tell you that your other parents were going to hell?
No. That I was very fortunate. I grew up in kind of a liberal hippie town, so they were very
Fantastic.
open, you know, like as far as I know, there wasn't really any homophobia. It's a pretty open environment. So, and that's why I felt like safe to sort of like try it out and explore that.
Because you could recant it. You weren't like forced into
I wasn't forced into anything. Yeah. So there was an openness there.
So now you're just continuing this sort of lifelong search.
It's always a lifelong
spirituality.
search. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's one more question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
And I have to read it.
Okay.
Because it's a quote. I mean, critics are critics, you know. There's not, it depends on who the person is, whether or not they have any validity, you know. And there was a time when Pitchfork was the authority of what is and what isn't called the voice of God, especially in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
But Pitchfork said at the end of their review of your 2022 album, Vitesse X isn't there yet, but is headed somewhere all her own. How do you interpret that? And do you agree with that review of your record?
I really like that review.
It was a pretty positive review.
It was funny.
Actually.
I had like fans being like, "Fuck Pitchfork." They gave her a 6.9. Like they were like angrier for me than I was angry for myself. Like I had no expectations for that record at all. I wasn't planning on Vitesse X becoming much of a thing. In my head, it was the pandemic. I hadn't made a work of music that I could call my own before. And I was just like, I just need to do this. I'm almost 30. I just need to do this. That was the only intent I had going into it. And so anything that kind of transpired from there was always just like exciting and a surprise for me. So getting Pitchfork to have their eyes on me was an amazing thing.
That's huge, right?
Yeah.
And like, it's so weird because when I saw it, I looked at the number, it's 6.9 or 6.8 or whatever. And I was like, damn, that's rude, right? And then I started reading it. I'm like, this isn't a bad review.
Yeah, well, the way that Pitchfork works, I'll get into like the nitty gritty. There's like there's a team of people and they all vote, I guess, anonymously. And then that's all sort of compiled into one number. But the reviewer didn't necessarily give me that number. So I'm hoping that maybe it was a little bit higher. That explains a lot.
Because the actual review was overwhelmingly positive with like criticisms that are kind of criticisms anyone would give anyone else. Like, oh, you know, this one, not the tempo, this, you know, like very bland, sort of nothing negative. That last line was the only line that could be interpreted a couple different ways, you know?
I didn't interpret it so much as negative. I actually appreciated that they saw the potential in me because I don't think that album is my best work. I think that it was just like the first step. So I actually...
So it's true.
It's true to me. Yeah. I didn't take it as like super negative. I'm like, I would hope that I'm only going to grow from here. So
that's not a negative statement at all. Yeah. I think it can, and that's why I want to ask if you thought it was, because when I read that, I read it as this is obviously the beginning of something that's going to get better.
Yeah.
And you agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the pressure. The pressure's on. Maybe from that statement. But other than that, I think I actually really appreciated that review. Yeah.
How is the new stuff going to be better?
More honest. That was definitely like the main thing going into all of my future music. I put out a couple songs on that last record that was based off of maybe like I was in a little bit of like a bubble at the time and was thinking that I needed to make a couple songs to sound a certain way just based on like what I thought people wanted. And then after I put it out, I was like, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. But you know, it's like, it's part of like the story. I don't ever want to like hate on my work too much. It's just like, I would, again, just hope I grow from there and learn from it. And I think people appreciate seeing growth in artists.
And you trust yourself more now.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You're becoming more free. And
Yeah.
you're trusting yourself more.
Yeah. I'm trusting my intuition a lot more and just like letting the subconscious flow a lot more freely when I write music. Yeah.
I think it's going to be awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thanks for